You can actually hear me talking to her because that makes sense. Of course you talk to birds. Yeah, absolutely.
Hello. I'll leave you be now.
Most of the time when I notice something that's bird-shaped high in a tree, it's a branch. But I will never stop double checking because the 1% of the time that it's not, it's usually something good. The black-crowned night heron is the most widespread heron globally, being found on every continent except Antarctica and Australia, which are famously both reserved for only monsters. It is rather common in North America, but it's often overlooked because of its rather muted colors and its rather secretive behavior and the fact that it feeds largely at night. It mainly eats fish and other small water-based things, but it will consume a variety of things if the need be. It's almost like it's an animal. It's kind of what they do. It did have some population declines in the 60s, but at least in North America, it is largely regarded as no longer threatened or stable in population. Because it's an upper trophic level bird, and because it's found basically everywhere, it is actually often used as an indicator of environmental health, especially around where humans are. If you live near a marsh, you're probably used to its harsh call. It have quite possibly seen it on one of its evening flights, as it was famously described by A.C. Bent.
How often in the gathering dusk of evening have we heard its loud, choking squawk, and looking up have seen its stocky form, dimly outlined against the gray sky, and propelled by steady wing beats, as it wings its way high in the air toward its evening feeding place, in some distant pond or marsh.
I love when scientists are also deep romantics. Usually makes the creature's names better. It is a pretty medium-sized heron and somewhat stocky at that, with a rather short neck and legs. The sexes look the same, although males are slightly larger, but I can't tell the difference in the wild. If you can, good for you. They've got a distinct black cap, black-crowned night heron, with a black upper back and scapulars. It's got gray wings, tail, and rump, with white underparts and neck sides. It's got these very distinct red irises, which I bet would be terrifying if you ran into it in the middle of the night. And these yellow-green legs that actually turn pink during the breeding season due to increased blood flow. Breeding adults actually develop these white plumes, and their black feathers develop a green-blue tinge. Juveniles actually look very different as they're brown with these large pale patches on them and a streaky underbelly. And actually the bird I saw was a juvenile, which is why at first I thought it might be an American bittern. It is often easily confused with the yellow-crowned night heron, the Nankeen night heron, along with the American bittern, which I mentioned earlier. Now, they've got a bunch of different plumages and molts, at least ornithologists say they do. But if you really want me to talk about formative plumages and the complex basic strategy, we'll do it at a later date. The one thing I will say is their molt pattern actually follows the Staffelmauser pattern, which basically means that the replacement of their feathers happens in waves so that they never have their ability to fly impeded. So there's always feathers, always something going in. They can always get airborne. So let me know if at some point you want me to go over some different molts. It actually takes some work to understand what's really going on, and sometimes I'm reading it and feel like just at any given moment, a bird's feathers will all just fall out. Despite how globally widespread they are, there's actually very little geographic variation in these guys. They're a bit larger in the Americas and smaller in Eurasia and Africa. The only other thing really is that their leg color is a bit different. In the Americas, it's usually a salmon pink during the breeding season, where it's a deep red over in the Old World. There are 4 recognized subspecies of these guys, actually, and I'm not going to sit here and try to say the names of them all. Sorry, but none of them are particularly different from the others. I'm sure someone will be offended by that, but on the scale of bird variation, this is rather small, okay? So the designation of them being night herons is actually part of their taxonomy. Night herons are distinct from the day herons. Although they're all herons, does any of this really matter? There has been some crossbreeding or hybridization documented throughout the night herons. Doubt I'm going to be able to find a picture of any of them. We do actually have fossil records of these guys from the late Pleistocene, and the earliest night heron that we have record from is from the Hemphillian, which is about 8 million years ago. I love fossils. There's not enough bird fossils. Or there are all birds. I don't want to get into that debate. In a lot of places below the equator, they actually live all year round, but up by me, it's just for the breeding season. I don't know why it's always just for the breeding season. I don't know why birds come to where I am just to have kids and then leave. It's nice here. In winter, you do often get a lot of birds in one place together during the breeding season. They kind of want their space a little bit. But there was a flock of 6,500 in California once, and they've been measured at over 10,000 in the Senegal Delta. That's a lot of birds. We have occasionally seen them in some more remote islands. It's the whole flying thing. And their migration is largely nocturnal and either singular or in large flocks. That's why we don't see birds. So as you might guess from such a globally dispersed bird, it also has a pretty wide range of habitats it likes. Wetlands, of course, freshwater, saltwater, brackish, it doesn't care. And it'll feed in rivers, lakes, ponds, swamps, mangroves, rice fields, mudflats, mangroves, marshes, crop fields, reservoirs, fish ponds, and even floating kelp beds offshore. Anywhere. Just anywhere. And that habitat doesn't really change during the summer or winter. It likes marshy stuff always. There's some evidence of natal philopatry, which I keep calling natal philopastry. I'm so sorry. I'll try not to. Where many young herons return to the place of their birth to breed themselves. In between half and 3/4 of birds seem to return to the state they were born in, often within 10 to 20 kilometers of the original nesting colony. Some birds have even been confirmed breeding at their birth site years later. However, some individuals disperse widely, with birds that were banded in North America being found as far as Russia and Nicaragua. Their migratory patterns vary widely by region. It's kind of what happens with a global bird, with some populations being sedentary and some migrating up to 1,200 kilometers. Now, I've already talked about my confusion when it comes to bird sounds, and these guys have a lot of them. So I'm going to save myself some trouble, and I'm going to write it down. The young actually develop several different vocal patterns pretty quickly, and the adults have a different call for every time of the day. I mean, why are there several different ways of transcribing the same call? And they're all ridiculous. I'm not saying that. Now, these birds try every different kind of locomotion. They walk, they fly, they swim. Their walking is slow and deliberate. You've seen some sort of heron walk. It's that very distinct creeping up on you pattern. And flying, while they can do it always because of their molting pattern, is more labored than it is in day herons. Their wings beat faster, about 2.5 to 3 times a second, and they can get up to 20 miles per hour. For the time they spend in the water, they will both dive feet first and head first to get prey, and they'll also swim and float if they're just resting. 20% of the time that they're perched, they're preening, but during the day, they're usually sleeping. They usually leave their roosts after sunset and return before dawn, with the peak of their feeding activity in the night occurring about an hour and a half before sunrise. They will defend both their nesting and their breeding territories by striking or grabbing with their bill, along with being aggressive towards intruders like crows. Although while they're territorial, there doesn't seem to be any clear hierarchy within a colony. One guy just says, this part is mine and I'm going to defend it with my life. And it works. They do seem to be a monogamous bird with their courtship rituals and male aggression, but pairs do seem to be just for the season. Now, I keep talking about the breeding season, but that is highly variable because they are a latitudinally diverse bird. In the more temperate regions, breeding starts basically with the spring, whereas in the tropics and the subtropics, it really lines up with the rainy season. These guys typically have one brood per season, although renesting can occur if a nest fails very early. That renested is indicated by prolonged nesting periods and the sort of bimodal nesting peaks that we see. That could also be just population substructuring. The males are typically ones that choose the nesting sites, and often picking sites on islands, over water, or in wetlands to stay away from predators. The males also typically start the nest building and will pick out twigs and present it to their female mate. They typically like to nest in live trees, although the kind of tree, as far as I can tell, seems to be anything that's a tree. Although in the Falkland Islands, they have also been seen nesting on kelp beds. Colonies can actually last for decades, but will move due to habitat degradation. Also, the height at which a nest is constructed varies by region, which is fascinating. On average, on Alcatraz, actually, nests are about 1 meter above the ground, whereas if you go to Tennessee, they're about 14 meters above the ground. There's also a lot of records of reuse of old nests, with the reuse rate getting up to 86% in Massachusetts. Your average clutch size is going to be 3 to 5 eggs, and both mates will incubate, and incubation takes about 21 to 26 days. The hatching is asynchronous and happens in the order that the eggs were laid, and the chicks are semi-altricial at birth. They do develop rather quickly, and they can climb from the nest at about day 10. By day 20, they're perching on higher branches, and by day 35, they're fully feathered and able to perch wherever they want. Now, due to a couple of things, the asynchronous hatching, the fact that the last egg laid is usually smaller, and limited resources, siblicide is somewhat common. Older siblings often swallowing the head of younger ones, leaving the younger ones fairly close to death. I simultaneously have many questions as to how that works, and want to hear nothing more about it, ever. Maybe it would be easier if I was an only child. My sister's very nice. Now, while they start leaving the nest at about day 30, their first flight isn't about until day 40 to 50, and that's also around when they start independently feeding. Once they have fledged, the young actually start to disperse a little bit, often northwards. Not a true migration at all, just sort of spreading out. The mortality rate for first-year birds is about 69%, but then it goes down to 23% annually after the first year. Now, my area is not really a hotspot for these guys, so I didn't expect to see one until I saw one. I wasn't actually looking for this bird at all. I went out that day with the intention of finding lesser yellowlegs. So I've been very happy at the prospect of trying to find these guys until my sister pointed out to me that their name implies they are a type of legs. I don't know if that makes them more appealing or less appealing, but we're still gonna go try to find them. I do still stand by that. I can't stop thinking about them as a kind of legs. I started at one of my favorite spots at Durand Eastman Park around Lake Eastman, where really I didn't expect to have much luck. I more expected to get a shot of some of the swans there that I love and climb a tree apparently. But then I went to Braddock Beach up on Lake Ontario. Yes, it's part of the Braddock Wildlife Management Area. It's a big area, which I expected to have better results for shorebirds. One of the things I really like about this path is it feels like you're in upstate New York and then somehow you're in the rainforest with the trees and the humidity and the birds tweeting. It's great. I spent some time sitting by the water and in fact pulled my pants up because they had a flared bottom. I was trying to not get them in the water. I can't say that quite worked, but sometimes your pants get wet. Saw a lot of ducks. I saw some egrets that I knew hung out around there. And I actually saw a Caspian tern too, but no yellowlegs, unfortunately. But then as I was about to leave, actually, way up in a tree, I saw something that looked like a bird. My brain immediately went, oh no, it's probably a stick. But I looked again and no, it was a bird. For a minute, I thought it was an American bittern, but it became clear that it just wasn't quite right for a bittern. It seemed very unconcerned by me. So I set up both my video camera and took a bunch of pictures with my photography camera. And he or she just stayed there. Looking at me. Looking at her. Looking at me. Looking at her. You can actually hear me as I was about to leave talking to her because that makes sense. Of course you talk to birds. Yeah, absolutely.
Hello. I'll leave you be now.
You can see that this is a juvenile. She doesn't have any of that distinct plumage that breeding adults have or those bright red irises. I did walk around a little more to see if there was anybody else I could spot, but no, it was just her. Remember, I'm in no way an expert in this. I'm not an ornithologist, not even really a birder. I'm just a photographer who likes it.